My name is Jason Caddy, and I'm so glad that you have joined me for this episode number 5 of the Pastor's Notebook, where we learn, where we grow, and where we go forward together in ministry and in life. If you are new, if this is the first time that you are listening, then I would encourage you not only to go back and listen some more, I just want you to know that I'm glad you're here. I am having a blast kind of sharing some things I've learned over the last 30 years or so. And I'm glad that you're here, and I'm praying that this helps you as you continue to move forward in life and ministry. If you are coming back, if this is not the first time, but this is the second, third, fourth, or maybe even the fifth time, then I'm glad you're back as well. And once again, I'm hoping and praying that what we're doing is we are learning, growing, and going forward together in ministry and life. Now, here's the deal. You can get this episode, you can get this podcast every Tuesday, and I would love for you to subscribe, to share, to rate, to review, to let somebody know, because I want to get this out to as many people as possible. It's not that I know everything, it's not that I've got it all together. It's just one of those things that what I'm trying to do in life is take the things that I've learned and share it with people that are trying to figure it out. In fact, today we'll talk a little bit about that, because I've been kind of hanging with some people that are well, they're other pastors and they're wanting to figure it out too. And so one of the things that we did is we just kind of sat down and figured it out. All right. So this is episode 5. This is all about whenever we are pastoring, we're learning new ways. We want to learn new ways of doing things. Now, the very first thing that people begin to think about at that moment is, hey, Jason, are you going to change your message? Absolutely not. The same message that was relevant 2,000 years ago is the same message that's relevant today. In fact, I would tell you, in my culture, in my context here in the Western Hemisphere, I believe it's vital to every person that is listening. We've got to get the message of Jesus out to people so that people's lives can be transformed, so that they can be or they can find hope and peace and joy and love and grace and experience the transformation of who God is and who God wants to be inside of them every single time. So we're not talking about changing any messages. We're not talking about whether we're going to use this word or that word. But I do think, and I fully believe, that one of the things that we have to do as we continue in ministry is we have to learn new ways. Now, I have to be careful whenever I say that. And here's the reason why. Because let me put it this way. We have 4 children, Tina and I, and our second son was learning math. He was probably in about 4th, maybe 5th grade, maybe his 3rd grade, I don't know, 4th or 5th grade. And he came to me one day, and I will probably have that wrong, so just bear with me. But he came to me one day and said, Dad, I need to know how to divide. And he was learning division. So it was probably earlier than 4th grade, right? It may have been 3rd grade, whatever it was. He was learning division, and he was having to divide 4 into 24, right? And so I did what I did whenever I grew up, the way my dad taught me, the way my teachers taught me. I put the 4, I put the little whatever that signal is, and the 24 in. How many times is 4 going to 24? That's 6. Boom, you're done like that. Then I started doing some other things, right? 20 into 200, right? 200 divided by 20. There you go. It's 10. And the way you do that, all of a sudden, I saw this blank look on my son's face, and he said, Dad, I've never seen anything like that. I said, what do you mean? He said, Dad, that's not the way that they've taught us how to do division. They were teaching them some new ways to do things. So I want to be careful when I say, because he and I had to figure that out and had to walk through what it meant to learn division in my era and now his era. So I want to make sure you understand that learning new ways is important. Learning how to do things. Part of that comes from, I had a pastor whenever I was very early on in ministry, and one of his favorite things to do was to go visit people, right? He wanted to be a part of their lives, and so he would spend inordinate amount of time with them. He would do all of his study typically in the morning, and listen, this guy was great when it came to study. He had a certain method that he taught me how to study and how to prepare to preach and all those kinds of things. But what he would do so much of is just go into their homes, go hang out with them, and connect with them in their homes. Well, when I started, I did what I was taught to do. And as a youth pastor, I wasn't going into their homes. I was going to eat lunch with them at school. I was making sure to show up at band practice and football practice, and I was there every single Friday night for football games. And we were connecting, and I would take them out. We would Tina and I would take them out for pizza afterwards or whatever it was. We were connecting with them in that way, and the group was growing. Right, it was exploding. But my pastor kept saying, "Hey, Jason, you need to get in their homes. You need to be in their homes because if you're not in their homes, you're not really connecting." I had to look at him and say, I don't know that I understand that. I don't know too many people that want me in their homes. And honestly, I wouldn't want somebody visiting me in my home. Now, that might not be you. You may think, man, if you want to come over, as long as you bring Chick-fil-A, I'm good. That's up to you. That's just kind of where I was. The youth group was growing, it was exploding. We were having great days, but he really struggled with this change in ministry strategy. He really thought it was all about going to their homes. I tried going. Most of the time, they weren't there. Most of the time, if they were there, it may have been kind of an awkward thing, so I didn't really go in. I just kind of hung out at the front door or whatever, and I would leave. I wouldn't stay very long. One of the key things for us in ministry, and I think it comes to you and I in this idea of professional or maybe in the pastoral professional realm, one of the things we have to do is consistently learn new ways to do the same things, right? That's what we're really doing, learning new ways to do the things that people have been doing for years. My pastor, it was all about visiting in their homes, and that was their turf. That was the parents' turf, or the people in the church, that was their turf. For me, I was going to my teenagers' turf, right? I was going to their schools. I was going to their band and football practices and games. I was making sure that they saw me all along the way. We have to continue to learn new ways because things don't always stay the same. And so, one of the things I'm going to encourage you as you continue to grow in ministry is a couple of things, right? In order to learn new ways to do things that really most people have been doing for years. Number one, I think it's important that you will read. That's the best thing I can say. I was trying to figure out a different way to say it. There's really no other way to say it. I heard a phrase once upon a time that leaders are readers, right? Leaders are readers. You can see in the background over here. I've got some books that I've read, and some of them are leadership books, and some of them are pastoral theology books or whatever. Over here, I've got other books that are all about the theology and its commentaries. But whenever I think about trying to become a better pastor, then what I do is I think about reading. I want to make sure that I read as often as I can. Now, even that has changed in my life. I actually just cleaned out a bunch of my bookshelves. And the reason I did is I haven't touched some of those books in decades. And I've been carrying them around. They've just been sitting there collecting dust. And I thought either somebody else can use them. I haven't read them in years. Let me just get rid of them. So you can read books. Another way that people are doing a new thing, right? It's the new way is to listen. And I quite often listen to books online. I use a service called Audible. Other people use different ways to do that. And so they're trying to make sure that they learn by reading. And I'm counting Audible as a way to read. I'm listening to the book. I listen to it as I travel. I listen to it in my office. Sometimes I listen to it whenever I work out in the gym. I'm constantly listening to those different books. Now, I know some people are going to go, well, do you remember everything? Probably not. But what I've learned to do is when I'm listening to those books and I'm listening to that stuff, if I hear something that pops in my mind, I go, I can't forget that. I stop, I pull out the notes on my phone, I type it out, and then I get going again. Now, so reading, because leaders are readers, that's one thing. The second thing is listening to other leaders, making sure that you're doing that. I do that most often through podcasts, similar to this one. I'm trying to make sure that I'm keeping up with trends. I'm trying to keep up with those who have done very well in the past. I want to know what the latest things are and the ways people are growing and moving and helping the kingdom to move forward. And so, once again, I listen to podcasts quite often. Most of my podcasts are listened to at between about 5 and 7 in the morning, whenever I'm working out or when I'm driving back and forth from my house to the gym. I'm trying to do that. A third thing is just to meet with other pastors, to sit and talk. I kind of mentioned that towards the beginning of this podcast. Today was a day that what I do about every other month is I gather with about 3 or 4 other pastors in my general area, and we just talk. We talk about what we're preaching. We talk about what's going on. We talk about our struggles. We talk about the difficulties we're facing and what happens in that moment. It's that thing that the Bible talks about where iron sharpens iron. And I begin to learn, I begin to gain ideas. Hopefully, whatever I'm sharing, they're learning, they're gaining ideas. There's something about making sure that whenever we are together, that we help each other. Too many times, and if you're starting out, I want you to hear this. You may be in the middle of ministry. You need to hear this. I don't care if you're at the end of ministry. I think you need to hear this. Too many times, too many pastors want to do ministry all by themselves. That is not a smart way to do ministry. I don't even think we were meant to do ministry by ourselves. I think we were meant to do ministry all together. And so finding time, I do that a couple of ways. Like I said, I met this morning with about 3 other pastors. We talked about ministry. I have some retired pastors in my church, and about 3 times a year or so, what I try to do is I try to take them all out. I take them out in a group, and I say, hey, listen, would you share with me? I look at them and I tell them, I'm standing on your shoulders. The things you were able to do, I'm able to do because you did them before me. I want to learn from you. You've got wisdom I don't have. So I would encourage you to make sure that you're meeting with other people, people that are older than you that you can learn from, but don't ever forget to look backwards and go, hey, you're just starting. Let's do this thing together. Let's learn together in this process. So the very basics, once again, is that we need to continue to learn new ways as we continue through ministry. Never be satisfied. Never forget to progress. Never, I'm not talking message, I'm talking methods, right? Make sure that you continue to learn to do new things that will advance the kingdom. The ways that we do that we mentioned today, and I'm sure there are so many more ways that we could have mentioned, that we should have mentioned, that maybe you're thinking of right now. But the ways that I mentioned are number one, read. Make sure that you're a reader. I typically ask most pastors, university presidents, other people, what are you reading these days? I've got a whole list on my phone of books that I want to read. I've got a whole shelf of books that I want to read. Leaders are readers, so make sure that you're reading. Number two, listen to other pastors. And when I say that, I'm talking about the ways a lot of people do that is through podcasts. I'm listening to leadership podcasts. I'm listening to pastors preaching. I'm trying to learn and I'm trying to grow and so that I can continue to move forward. And the third thing is make sure that you have a group of people. Make sure that what you're doing is connecting with other people. If you're by yourself, you may be a solo pastor in a church somewhere and you're thinking, man, I don't know anybody. I have had the opportunity to be like that. And what I've done is simply emailed other pastors in the area and just go, hey, can I buy you a Coke and a smile, right? Coke and fries. Let's just get together. And sometimes there was a connection, a friendship that developed. Other times there weren't. I used to have a pastor right across the street from me. And when I would cut my grass, he'd be cutting his grass, and we'd both stop and just talk shop for a little bit. So once again, read. Find some books to read, even if it's listening on something like Audible. Number two, listen to other leaders and pastors. I typically do that through podcasts. You're listening to one right now. And three, connecting with people. And you can do that in a multitude of ways, right? Just pastors in your neighborhood, pastors in your local tribe, retired pastors, whatever it is. Make sure that you're doing those three. That's the key part of ministry as we continue to learn new ways, all right? So, hey, listen, I am so glad that you're here. I hope that this episode number 5 of the Pastor's Notebook, has given you just a taste and some ideas of some ways to grow and go and to move forward in life and ministry. I want to learn. I'm hoping that what you will do is kind of respond to this, share some thoughts. What do you listen to? In fact, I would love that. Would you take a moment just to share a book or two? I'll share some books that I'm reading with you later, okay? Or share with me your favorite podcast. I would love to hear that. I'm always on the lookout for those kinds of things. I'm desperate to grow, and I hope that what will happen is that as we share that stuff together, that once again we can grow and go and move forward together in ministry and life. Remember that the next episode will be out next Tuesday. Also, make sure that what you do is subscribe and share, rate, and review this podcast in whatever form you are on, whether this is YouTube or whether it's Spotify, because we want to continue to get this stuff out, let other people know. But for now, my name is Jason Caddy. I am just glad to be a part of it all. And never ever forget, my friend, you are loved.